Someone's coming out.
Go back and listen to this shit later. Good idea.
Hey, yo!
This is
Poorman
I think the third one he's done this way where because we put them out a little bit faster.
Yeah, just check
You
audio.
can adjust the sound quality as you're starting.
Yeah, as opposed to later.
Turn that down.
This is the Poor Man's Podcast. I'm Jay Moody. Alan Aguilar is here, and today we have Steve Staple.
Hello.
Guitar player for the Iceman Special and the several other bands you were telling me about.
Yeah, myself and Will and Charlie Murray and another guy named Will Darville play in another band called Holly Rock, which is a sort of euphemism for Oakdale, Louisiana, which is where I am from and also where Will and Charlie are from.
You told me it's kind of like Americana.
It's Americana, it's country-ish and very country at times, but not what I would call modern day country pop like you hear in Nashville.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like more traditional kind of country.
Got a little honky tonk
folksy,
to it.
yeah, folksy. Kind
Like
of
the
stuff.
leg slappers and.
Some of it, it's different. We do some covers and some original stuff, so it's a lot of fun.
I was like those other, like the Americana with the walking bass lines. That's just kind of.
Well, we don't have a bass player.
Oh, okay.
Which makes it even more interesting. We have two electric guitar, which I play, and we have a acoustic guitar that Will plays. We both have big footboard pedals and or pedal boards, and then we have a violin player, Will Darville, who's very good. He's from the Northeast, and we have a drummer. Sometimes I play bass lines on the electric guitar with a pedal that lowers my pitch.
Okay. Yeah. Octave. Is that what it is? Or just a
Well,
pitch shifter?
this is a pitch shifter.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. And you also told me you were in a band that you were in high school.
I'm in a band called the Gunga Dens, which has a long history. We were together in the 60s. We had a couple of hit records, and we disbanded in like late 68. And then in 2013, they have a festival in New Orleans called the Ponderosa Stomp, which gets together bands from yesteryear and has them come back, and we got the band back together for that, and it was a big success. And so we've been together ever since.
Just kept going with it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't play a whole lot, but we play every 6 or 8 weeks.
That's pretty
like
cool,
that.
though. That's a pretty good time frame of knowing somebody or people and working together.
Yeah, we have myself and one of the other guys who are original members, the original lead singer. And then we have 2 of the guys that played with us at the Ponderosa Stomp. And then a new guy who plays bass who's really good named Terry Pospisil. He's quite amazing. And it's heavy on vocals.
Okay.
We do mostly we do a bunch of original stuff, but we do mid to late 60s, early 70s rock that was more based on British invasion kind of stuff, like the Beatles and the Who and
The Stones.
the Stones. We do a lot of Stone stuff, and then we do a bunch of Chuck Berry stuff, but and we do a few modern things, but it tends to focus on that style of music.
Yeah, that's a cool style. Like,
I love it.
like Cream and all, like with those really
like Cream.
That's when you really start to get the development of like the riff.
Yeah, oh yeah, right. Or I'll mention some names like the 13th Floor Elevators. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but you should check them out.
I'm gonna now that you
They're
said that.
badass. They're fantastic.
If they're in that niche, that genre, that British invasion.
Right. Well, it's
late
that
60s.
British invasion, a little rawer than that. But
Oh,
and then
that
there's
sounds even
another
better.
band called the Sonics from California that are still together and playing too. They had a song called "Have Love Will Travel," which is one all you podcasters should take a check on that.
Oh, they're gonna trust me. That's so you're doing that, and we're playing this music in 3 bands, and then you also own a guitar shop, which is New Orleans. That
International
seems
Vintage Guitars.
That seems like it's a pretty interesting. Like that alone can get you some pretty good stories.
Yeah.
A guitar shop in New Orleans.
Well, I was in music school at Loyola University, and I got a job in the summer working at a guitar shop there called Foster's, which is no longer in business, but it was a real guitar shop in the sense that they had real luthiers working there, men that knew how to build guitars from scratch and do repairs and refinishing, and they had 3 or 4 guys that were doing that full time. And if you went in there in the 80s, it would be completely full of all the guitar players in New Orleans and anybody who was visiting. And it was a place to go to talk to people about playing guitar, learn new stuff about guitars, and have your instruments worked on, and then buy guitars and pedals and amps and things like that too. So I worked there, and it changed hands. The owner of it decided he was going to move north of of New Orleans, and he sold the shop in New Orleans to another guy, and I kept working for that guy, but he and I didn't see eye to eye on things, and so I had inherited a little bit of money from my grandmother, and I took that money and I opened my guitar shop in 1992.
1992. So, is it kind of you trying to recreate that vibe where you have just people who can go in there and talk about guitar?
Yeah, I try, and it's I've had to move a number of times since we opened, but the original shop was where the Pacific Theater D-Day Museum is, at the corner of Andrew Higgins and Magazine Street in New Orleans, and it was fantastic. It was back then in the early '90s. That was just when the vintage guitar craze was starting, and the Japanese people got obsessed about it.
Like old tellies and...
Oh man, and you could buy them. You could go in a pawn shop and buy old Fender amps and Fender guitars quite easily back then, that's changed. That's changed now.
That's
mainly because of the internet and because of people have through the popular culture or pop culture that you now know, everyone knows about guitars, and everybody knows that they're worth money, or that they're interesting and they have value, and they've become iconic. If you watch movies that are made today, I would say at least half the movies that I see that aren't war movies,
a lot of them
there's a guitar picture in there somewhere. It's
like
sitting on a couch, or it's hanging on a wall.
Yeah, everybody has one in their apartment. Yeah,
there's guitars everywhere, and they're iconic. In that movie Iron Man, I don't know if anybody here has seen that movie Iron Man, but the Iron Man movie, which is a great movie, there's a scene when they're showing the apartment of Iron Man, and he's this wealthy businessman, and the scene, they're panning from one side of the apartment all around the apartment, almost like a 180-degree pan. In the middle of the shot, they have a vintage 335 and a vintage Telecaster sitting on two stands direct facing the camera, and the camera stops, and that's all it shows. It has nothing to do with the story or anything else. He never show him playing the guitar, but it must be, I'm thinking the director is a guitar player, and he has his two guitars on a stand, and then they move on, and it's never mentioned again. But it's an interesting statement.
There, pauses for a second.
It's pauses to show you these two guitars.
Yeah. That's those old tellies, man. I love them.
Oh, there's nothing like them.
No.
They're like, besides the Les Paul, it's the Telecaster and the Les Paul. Those are the first two, the main ones.
I know a lot of guys that are Strat guys. I enjoy them. I'm more of a Tele guy myself.
Well, Telecasters are, they're amazing. Telecasters and Esquires, which Esquires was the original guitar. I had one pickup. The Telecaster sort of came after.
Yeah. Well, I like the like a bridge humbucker, and then
I like that too.
Neck single coil.
I like that too.
Because I think a single coil on the neck, you get that buttery, bluesy sound when it's a little more. It's a little bassier, especially with a single coil. Though it kind of keeps some of your treble in there. Gives you that cool, I feel like that's kind of, you get into funk and stuff. That's kind of helped make it, more that twang.
You look across the board in every genre, even in jazz, you have guys playing Telecasters.
Yeah, there's guys in metal playing Telecasters.
That's right.
Like Jim Root, that's his signature.
That's right, Jim Root.
Yeah. It's a decent I'm not a fan of the AMGs in it, but...
There's a guy named Mike Stern, and there's a guy named Robin Ford, two big jazz players. I mean, modern jazz players. They both have played Telecasters extensively.
Yeah.
And recorded albums.
It's a good guitar.
Telecaster. amazing.
I mean, imagine you get exposed to a lot of musicians in New Orleans because that's a music-heavy city.
It is, and I mean, I just was. I mean, it wasn't any sort of the plan. I didn't even choose the name of my store. Somebody else gave me the name. They thought of the name, but through the years, I mean, I just happened to be in New Orleans and be basically the only vintage guitar store there for a number of years, and as a result of that, and because by the grace of God somebody told me about the internet, and I found out about the internet, and I got an internet website really early on in the days when people were using dial-up modems.
So like mid-90s.
Yeah, I got a website right away, and I went at Loyola. They taught us all about computers, and so I was very familiar with computers, and I advertised in the music magazines and in the guitar magazines, and people started coming. They just started coming. People would show up. You would never know who was going to walk in the door. So out of that, stories.
You've had like some. They said Joe Bonamassa. Had been
Joe Bonamassa. Yeah, I've sold him.
That guy's obsessed with buying guitars and amps.
Yeah, I got pictures of his guitars on my phone.
Yeah,
that's awesome. He came in the shop and bought a guitar from me that's actually in one of his little podcasts or webcasts called The Cajun. It's like a 1955 Les Paul Gold Top that he bought from me.
Those gold tops are pretty.
Yeah, and he fell in love with it and bought it. And
so with the soap bars in them?
Yeah, soap bars in it. Yeah. And stop tailpiece with the two-pneumatic bridge. It was the first rendition of that particular combination, which is a magical combination. And he a few years passed, and he came back like last year, a year before, and he came to the shop again and bought another gold guitar from me, a 1953 ES 295, which is completely gold. The neck's gold, the whole body's gold. It's a big, thick jazz kind of guitar.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of blues players use them. And he bought that from me, and he was on tour, and he was playing at the Sanger, and he asked me to come to the show because he wanted to show me all of his guitars. He's a real guitar nerd.
He's a collector for sure.
Yeah, but he loves them. It's not just.
Oh, it's an obsession. You can tell.
He's passionate about it.
Yeah, he goes out of his way to find very obscure.
Well,
models.
yeah, he's in love with guitars, like I am. From an early age, he was, and I was too. And so he brought me backstage and showed me this rack of guitars that he had on tour with him that. I don't know how much money they were worth, but in the millions of dollars, just this one rack. He had three of the most famous and rarest guitars in the world in his rack that he was playing in concert.
I don't think any of those are getting, he doesn't put them in a vault and try.
Well, I don't know. He has a place. I imagine
he does a very good amount of preserving them and maintenance and stuff like that, but he does play them.
Right, but he went down the rack, he let me play them all, and he told me the story about each one of them, which was really, for me, I was in heaven. It was fantastic.
Yeah, every guitar has a story, especially, I mean, not straight off the factory line, but you get a 50-year-old guitar, some hands have touched it. It's been some places.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you see, also, depending on the player that owned it before, the little, your fret wear and on the fingerboard and all that, you're the characteristic is it definitely becomes, you could have two of the exact, serial number of this one and then the next one, and you could bring them here now, and they would look like totally different guitars.
It's true, but I have a story about a guitar like that too, which is really interesting. But you're right. Well, you could have 5 guitars that were built on the same day, consecutively by the same person or the same group of people in the Fender factory or the Gibson factory. And they all 5 sound totally different from each other.
Yeah.
It has to do with the character of the wood, the way the thing's set, the way it's set in the climate that it was in.
The grain.
Or how much glue they used. There's all kinds of factors.
Dude, even just putting in the truss rod.
Yep.
Different techniques for that are going to change your tone a little bit.
It's true. And when they're handmade, every one of them's they may look the same, but they're different.
Mm-hmm. That's why whenever you find one of those, an old vintage one that has that perfect sound for you, you're like, this is it.
Oh, yeah. And you know it, when I'm buying a guitar, or I'm appraising a guitar for somebody one night. They hand it to me and I pick it up, and I usually, when I strum it for the first time, I know. I can't explain it, but it's just like you go, okay, this is a good one. Kind of takes your breath away.
Do you have a preferred chord for your first strum?
Usually E.
E? Okay, that's a good one. Yeah.
Usually just a plain, that's the guitar chord. Just the open, just the regular E, the three, the triad, the big guitar, boom, the opening chord for I Can See for Miles and Miles by the Who.
Yeah, that's
lots of blues and rock and roll starts on the E.
And keeps going.
And man, it's just, you play that, oh man, and the guitar will just resonate. And the thing about guitars is they're very personal because, you're holding them next to your body.
Mm-hmm.
So they're vibrating through your stomach and your rib cage and your arms.
Yeah, the reverberation through your body, yeah. It's also the time you spend.
Guitar players, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I've been playing bass for like 15 years. My bass is right there on the chair. My cat's laying on it. I know exactly what you're talking about. Plus, it's been that close to you while you were taking the time, putting those hours in the workshop to learn your scales, chords, and then put your own little improvisation on it, kind of get your style. And that takes years to develop.
That's true.
And then once you get past that and you get to past a novice stage, you're intermediate to professional, you spend a lot of time with that guitar on you, vibrating through your body. And if you have this one that you love and you spent that much time with that one guitar, that's...
Yeah.
There's a few things that you're going to find is valuable.
Case in fact, Willie Nelson. He's been playing that same Martin acoustic for nylon string guitar forever. It's got holes in it.
His whole career.
And he plays it every concert, and I don't know if he's had any repairs done to it. I would suspect he's had to have some that it remains structurally intact. But that guitar is his signature thing. That's his deal, and that's him. We have a cat in the studio.
Yeah, she likes to climb on shoulders. She likes to sit up on... She's like a parrot. I don't know. She's crazy. Let's say with B.B. King, he had Lucille. I don't know if he had... that was pretty much like a model. I don't know if he kept the same
there's
one.
A lot of guys from like myself, I've gone through a lot of guitars. I've had some that I really loved more than others, and I've sold them and bought new ones. And you fall in love with them, and then sometimes you find something else that you when you're moving into a different area of playing, or something else catches your eye and you play it and you let the other one go. There's some that I wish that I wouldn't have let go, for sure.
Oh, that's how it always
in retrospect.
Happens. Yeah.
But Eric Clapton was known. He had this guitar that was like a parts guitar. It was put together from pieces of other guitars, and they called it Blackie. It was a Stratocaster.
Mm-hmm.
He played it for a long time.
Sold that for like a couple $1 million.
And it was a parts guitar. It was not all original.
No, it's pretty much like a Frankenstein guitar.
Right, but then in Cream he played a SG, he played a Firebird, he played a 335,
some bigger
a
stuff.
68 335, he played that. He sold that to Guitar Center, I think, for $500,000.
He sold... Every guitar he sells, it's ridiculous how much.
Right.
I'm not really so much like those bigger guitar places. They don't have the same vibe. It's like a locally owned guitar shop for me.
I agree, but of course I would agree. I have a small guitar shop, but
I've gone to some of those and they couldn't even adjust intonation or anything. They're just we got stuff. It's pretty much like going to a Walmart. They don't know everything about what it is you're buying. They just sell it.
Right. Well, fortunately for us, that in the United States, there's a number of guys who love and are passionate about guitars, and there's a lot of really nice guitar shops spread out through the country with guys. I know a lot of them, and but we're getting older, so who knows what's going to happen? But I'm sure there's younger guys. I see younger guys coming along that are doing the same kind of a thing.
Because I don't know, luthiers. That's a craft that right now I don't know. Like you're talking about, I don't know about a lot of younger guys getting into it. I see a lot of new independent guitar companies on Instagram and stuff where they make their own guitars, and they're really boutique, high end stuff. So imagine there's a younger generation getting into that luthier thing, so maybe they'll be able to keep it going.
They will, I think.
Because I don't want it all to be guitar centers and...
No, that's kind of the way of the future, unfortunately. But you're always going to have, I hope, smaller guys, that are doing it. It's always a matter of whether you can make enough money to stay afloat,
feel like that's where the internet comes in.
Yeah, and
Because you can make your own, like you're talking about, make your own website. You can do it with Squarespace right now. You can make a website in 20 minutes.
right.
Alan made ours in, I mean, it's kind of basic right now, but he made it in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long. For those smaller guys, they're making these really high end, like they're getting into those like 8 and 9 string guitars. I'm not a big fan of those, but even just like 6 strings that are really high end and putting, you know, the inlays and all the work into it, and they can sell them on the internet, and they don't even have to go through.
That's right.
They probably, you know, find a shop that they could sell a couple in here and there, but then everything else they just sell it on the internet. It keeps it going without having to like sell your brand, and so it gets into Guitar Center and do that whole system that is going to be. So I'm pretty happy about that. And they're getting crazy with some pickups too, man. Like
Oh yeah,
those the bare knuckle pickups.
bare knuckles.
Yeah, those things are high end. They're loud as hell.
They are very loud. I find there's a guy in Virginia called Lindy Fralin, and he repairs Fender and Gibson pickups and builds his own. And they are, at least in present day to me, the ones that sound the most like the original old pickups.
Mm-hmm.
And all the guys that I know who've been in the guitar business, vintage guitar business, send most of their stuff to him for him. If they have an old pickup that something's wrong with it, they send it to him because he's been doing it a long time. It's experience and passion, and he's really good. You can call him on the phone and talk to him about your pickup.
Yeah, down to earth, passion.
Yeah, I had a problem with a pickup recently in a guitar, and I sent it to him. He called me on the phone. He told me what was up with it. We went back and forth. We figured it out. He fixed it, sent it back to me. It was perfect, and but he knew. I mean, he knew. It was a really weird problem. Gibson built this pickup without a magnet in it. Originally, from like the mid-'60s.
But so that's how it was supposed to be made? Without
No. They built it. They must have been, the guy must have been in a rush or something, or got a phone call, he had to go to the bathroom, who knows what, walked away, came back, and didn't remember where he was, and put it together without the magnet in it.
That's a pretty important
So,
piece
you know, we had this guitar, like it had 2 pickups in it, and you'd play it, but you couldn't hear the back pickup except just very little. And so I couldn't figure out what was wrong with it, at all. So I thought, well, maybe it's got a bad coil, so I sent it to Lindy, and he said, "You're not going to believe this, but there's no magnet in there. It was built that way." I went, "I've never heard of that before."
That's a pretty crucial component to a pickup.
But he's been around so long that he had one of the original magnets.
See, that's that's why he's like, don't worry.
And he goes, I got it covered. He fixed it, put it back together.
You're probably not going to get that at Lake Charles Music. No offense to those guys, but they don't have a bunch of old Gibson magnets laying around.
No.
Or available. But it's also, whenever you're talking about like guys that are really passionate about it, that's what he does. That's what he loves. So of course he's going to probably be in the position to be able to fix any problem he can think of because he has the experience.
His name is Lindy Fralin. If you have a pickup problem, call him.
Lindy Fralin. You probably just Google it.
He makes great pickups.
He does like hand wound and all that.
Oh, everything's hand wound.
It's awesome.
And they're really good. And there's other companies like Lawler makes really great pickups. The bare knuckle ones are really good too.
I think they're a UK company too. The bare knuckles. They're kind of. I think they're more like aimed towards like a metal crowd.
And then the big company that makes really good pickups is Seymour Duncan. They make great pickups, especially their Antiquity series.
I was in a band with a guy and he was all about EMGs and passives, and I'm just like, I don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with them. You can get a good sound out of them. I just don't like the compression. And I had this guitar, it was a Schecter and it had some Seymour Duncans in it. I forget what model they were, but they were perfect. Like, absolutely perfect. I was just like, you'd hit like because we were playing, I think just in drop D, and you just strum that out, like, boom. I was like, see how big that sounds? There's no compression, and it's still going. Yeah. It's beautiful. Seymour Duncan does make some really high-end, like, especially because whenever you get into like the bigger names, you don't expect them to make something as quality as the boutique guy that we're talking about that like hand wounds everything and puts in those hours and hours. But they do. They make really good products.
Yeah.
Do you have a preferred model of Seymour Duncan? Like you said, the Antiquity one?
I like the Antiquities. I like every Antiquity I've ever heard.
That's awesome.
They're amazing.
Yeah, those are.
They're, I mean, he obviously got some old pickups and said, I'm going to build them just like this. I mean, the design's perfect, so
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. If it's
they
not brushed,
sound
don't fix
they
it.
look right. He brushes them so they look a little older.
Yeah, gives them a little aging.
Yeah, a little aging, and you put one in your guitar and it's magic. They're magic.
That's awesome. Yeah,
You can take like a less expensive guitar. Like I had this Hamer Korean-made Explorer. It was like Carina wood. It was really a nice guitar. And I took the pickups out and put Seymour Duncan's in it. Man,
that's something that like
it sounded like an old '50s Gibson.
awesome.
It was killer.
Got that like kind of that bite to it.
Well, but it's a warm bite.
Yeah.
You
kinda
know
like
those
old
PAF, that
SGs.
PAF sound.
Yeah. It's kind of like crisp is more I think what it is, like a warm like. That's what I guess I don't know if younger guys know that, like if you don't have a lot of money, buy a decent guitar and just put better pickups in it.
Yeah,
It's
a
world
lot of
changing.
guys do it, and it's really good.
And you don't have to buy like some $3,000 guitar. You can buy a $500 guitar.
You can buy a $500 Epiphone, or you can buy a Mexican Telly.
Yeah, and just put a better
And change-
pickup in it.
And you know, Fender from time to time still makes guitars that are made in Mexico that they put American parts on. Originally, that's the way they were made.
Oh,
the
American parts.
first Mexican Tellys and Strats were made. They brought all the parts in from the United States and built them. Those are really good guitars.
Mm.
And not the ones they're still making are really good too, but they keep the costs down by building the pickups and stuff in Mexico. But if you put American pickups in them, they'll jump out at you.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them are really good.
I think the only really like you could buy like we're talking about that $500 guitar, change the pickups, put you some locking tuning pegs, and go to the professional and get it adjusted.
That's right.
Because I mean a lot of
Or
guys
if
just
you
get
can
it and they
afford
start
it,
playing, like get it adjusted and
there-
you're gonna have like it's a world of difference.
There's a guy in Nashville named Joe Glazer who does a lot of the work for, top level musicians all over the country. He has a real guitar shop that's like that one I told you about that I went to work for. This is this is in the United States. It's the best single place that you could pick out to send your guitar to if you want to get it worked on. And he has a whole building that's just where they do work on guitars with guys that really know what they're doing. And they have this machine called a Plek machine. It's made in Germany. And it uses a computer and lasers to set up your guitar.
Oh, like intonation and everything.
It does all the fret work, the nut work, sets the intonation, sets the neck right, everything. You put it in the machine, it does it perfectly. And a lot of the big companies like Gibson and Fender and Epiphone, which is owned by Gibson, and a few other companies are plecking their guitars now. You can look at online, you can look that up, and they'll have guitars that are plecked, and they are amazing. I've had a couple of them, and they play and feel just like the old guitars that were set up perfectly at Gibson or Fender.
By hand, yeah.
And once they have your specs in the machine, they save them in a computer program, and you can
Send it back.
send it back and say, I want this one set up just like that one, and the machine just does it.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
Consistency. That's technology helps with consistency for sure.
It does. With that, it does.
Yeah. Well, there's also some other stuff like getting a guy that's been doing it for decades to set it up. We could do that, and
Right.
they're probably about the same.
Yeah, similar.
Yeah.
The nice thing about it, though, is guys like Peter Frampton, or Peter Frampton has, I don't know how many guitars, so he has all of his setups stored with Joe on a computer, and so he'll send the guitar back in, and he'll go, and then Joe will look it up, and this is the guitar, and this is how he wants it set up, and boom, they just put it in the machine
For
and he
each
does it.
specific guitar, I could just send. He's like, "Hey, it's this one." And he's like,
Right, or I want
"Got
this
it."
one set up like this one, and it'll set it up exactly the same.
That's awesome. I imagine, yeah, it's got to take a load off your mind too, because you're just like, man, hopefully it ends up just like it was last time. But you know it will.
It will
because
be.
That's a machine doing it, and their precision is. So what was the first guitar you ever had?
The first guitar I ever had was a K archtop. My parents bought it for me.
I love arch tops.
Well, this was not a very good guitar. It was really hard to play, but I was so determined that I did learn how to play guitar on that guitar. And my parents bought it for me at Warline's Music on Canal Street in New Orleans, and I'm going to say 62, 63, 64. And then the next summer, I was visiting my grandmother, and I saw an electric guitar in a window, and she was with me, and she said, "Do you see something that you like?" I said, "I love that guitar right there." It was a Fender Music Master. It was white with a red pickguard. It was a 63 or a 64. And so we went in the store and she bought it for me.
That's awesome.
That was my first electric guitar.
Yeah.
And it was a great guitar.
What was your first amp that went with it?
My parents bought me a Silvertone 15-watt tube amp that had tremolo. It was perfectly square. It was gray. And that's what I played in the first band that I played in, which was called the Twilights. And I used that for a long time. And then I got into the Gunga Dins. The Twilights and the Gunga Dins formed another band, but we called it the Gunga Dins in the late 60s, well, in the mid 60s. And my father met a minister who had a Gibson 3ES ES330 a custom one, and bought it and gave it to me, and he bought me a really nice Ampeg Gemini amplifier that was amazing, and that's what I played in that band.
Those old Ampegs, man.
It was a great combination.
Yeah, I imagine, because they have a real that earthy tone to them.
It had tremolo and reverb, and then it had this other thing called I can't remember what the exact name was, but it was the treble switch. If you turn it all the way to the right, when it get to the end, you could click it, and then it would make any guitar sound almost like a Telecaster, like this ice pick treble sound that was amazing.
This is awesome. I have my very first amp I ever got. I remember as a Park. It's when Marshall used to make
Parks.
Little bass amps. Yeah, I don't know if they still make them, but
I don't think they make them anymore, but they bring it back every once in a while.
Yeah,
as a name.
The first band I was in to record this album, I had this. This is when I was working at the plant, so I was just like, do a turnaround. I'll buy whatever gear I want. So this big Ampeg tower with a David Eden World Tour on it, and I playing with my Warwick, and I was like, man, this sounds pretty good. And then I brought in for just this one little intro, one song. I brought in that Park, and then recorded. I was like, I have to redo this whole thing with this Park because this is the best sound that I've gotten so far using the other guys' Mesas, the amps they had there, and my Ampeg and David Eden. This one little old Park, best tone. So I was like, all right, I got to redo this whole damn thing now. As soon as you hear it, I don't know what it is about those little old combo amps. You're usually gonna get the brightest, warmest tone.
Oh yeah, that's why Neil Young
so
uses
loud,
one.
You know?
Neil Young uses an old deluxe.
Yeah, the little tiny one, just puts a mic on it.
That's a monster amplifier.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people always want to be loud too. It's you don't have to be so damn loud. They're gonna mic it at the venue.
Doesn't need to be anymore.
No, just get something that sounds quality.
I saw ZZ Top one time in New Orleans, and Billy Gibbons had this huge, I guess it was 3 double stack orange amps behind him, and on the floor he had a little Fender Harvard tweed amp from the 50s, about 10 inches by 10 inches, and they had a mic in front of it. And there were certain songs where they would that's what you were hearing. You weren't hearing the big stack. You were just hearing that little amp mic'd.
That's what a lot of guys do. That you see.
It was pretty amazing.
Big wall of amplifiers, especially with those Pantera and Metallica and stuff like that. Most of those amps aren't on. There's a couple. If they have mics on them, there's a couple, and then they probably have an isolated cab. Behind those you can't see. Those are just for looks because they look awesome to have the big wall. Of just Pantera's Randall's, the Warheads.
Well, yeah, you don't need to because with the sophistication of PA systems now, and you can get your tone without having to have that sound. I mean, originally, I was fortunate to, I started going to concerts in the '60s, in the early '60s, and all through the '60s, and I got to see Jimi Hendrix in concert. And we sat in the front row, in the middle 5 seats, the band, the Gunga Dins, and this friend of mine from Oakdale. We sat in the front row.
So you heard stage volume.
Well, they didn't. The PA system was shit. I mean, it was just these columns on the side that they ran the vocals through, and so the amps themselves served as the PA for the amplifiers. So they had, if they're playing in small stadiums and large auditoriums, the amps had to be loud.
Yeah, they had
and so that was part of the reason. The Beatles, that was the same way the Beatles, Vox developed those Super Beatles for them because they were playing these large venues, and the PA systems were not
what they are now.
They're not even anything close to what they are now.
They're getting insane now.
And Hendrix played through, I think he had 4 Marshall stacks. I mean, one of them was a dummy stack that he could attack, which was part of his show. Stick his guitar through it and he humped it. He did all kinds of stuff, but he had 3 of them that were working, and it sounded amazing. And the bass player, Noel Redding, was playing through 5 Fender dual Showman bass amps. They were stacked in a pyramid. And you could have chords coming from a box that he was plugged into, where they were all these 5 chords going up to these 5 bass amps.
That's awesome.
You know,
I imagine it looked like a clusterfuck of wires.
It did, but it sounded great. I mean, but they didn't. You know, nowadays they don't have to do that. And most guys, I saw a really nice concert at the Sanger last week or 2 weeks ago, and Don Was was playing bass, and he was playing through the standard rock amp, which sounds amazing, which is that big Ampeg.
Oh yeah, the tube, the 300 watt tube or 100 watt tube head. Yeah, that's definitely.
Well, it's more than 100 watts, I believe. It's like 180 or 200 or 400, whatever it is.
It's a loud.
But that's what you see most bass players play through now. There's as tall as you are, taller.
Yeah, I love the Ampeg tower, like just the cab, and it's probably at my shoulder. And I think it's like 185 pounds too.
Yeah.
If they didn't have those casters, I would have never bought it.
But they sound great. But not all bass players use those anymore either. But they're all being DI'd so that they can mic it through the PA. So
I always go with like a DI box myself.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to have a little bit of control of that out. Because I want it to be a little warmer. Because usually they're gonna. It's not that I don't trust sound guys. It's just that I don't trust sound guys. Not 100% anyway.
Well, I in my shop, but you get what you get. You can talk to them all you want to, and sometimes they know what they're doing, and just like anybody else, sometimes they don't. But I was fortunate enough that I met the guys in Los Lobos, and they started coming to my shop early on, and they play. At that time, in the 90s and early 2000s, they were playing 200 to 250 gigs a year.
Damn.
Jesus.
And they were very popular in South America and Central America and in the United States. And they play a lot of festivals. And so I said, well, how do you guys, deal with, you play festivals, you don't get sound checks at festivals.
Yeah.
It's one band and there's the next band.
Yeah.
You get 15 minutes to set up in between acts, and then boom, you're on.
Yeah, unless you're like the headliner, the other guys, no background.
Cesar Rojas looked at me, he goes, man, we don't worry about it. I said, why? He goes, what's there to worry about? He goes, it's up to the sound guy anyway. He goes, we get off the plane, we go to the venue, we plug into the amp, we turn them all up as loud as they'll go, and we just play.
Dude, that's a good way to piss sound guys off right there. I play, like, whenever I play, I turn a lot of knobs. Like, I'll switch my pickup, or, I'll switch from the active to the passive, and that's an easy way to piss off sound guys. Because especially when you go from active to passive, they're just like,
what happened?
Like half the signal. Can't do that. And I was like, well, I did. That's awesome that they just show up and crank everything on them.
That's what they said. I was laughing.
Oh, I imagine at a festival that's fun, too, because the crowd's probably almost as loud.
Well, you have to. I mean, you don't have to, but you would like to be able to develop a degree of professionalism where you're not fazed by that stuff as much as you are when you're less secure about what you do. So they're so good that they're not worried about that anymore. They know how to sound good at any level. And if the sound guy screws it up, the sound guy screws it up, and they take it in stride. It's just part of being on the road and playing in not always really good conditions.
That's true. I guess
a
maybe
speaker can blow out on the PA system, or a horn.
Horns
that's
go
not
so
anybody's
fast.
fault, and then all of a sudden the whole crowd's going, well, I can't hear the cymbals anymore. I can't hear the voice, crispness of the voices. And the sound guy's like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
and then finally they figure it out at the end of the day, after 6 acts of, You know?
It was that horn
It was
right there.
those two horns on the left side took
Yeah.
all the whole crowd out on the left side. It was all muffled after that.
That's why I guess maybe
It happens.
Those sound guys, I guess maybe I would trust more because they're obviously doing bigger things. I'm talking about like a shithole in Beaumont with a sound guy that's like
Right.
also the DJ and does karaoke. I'm like, I don't know, man.
The more you get to your own level, you know, I mean, where you get to a level where you can have it in your contract that you're bringing your own sound guy.
Oh yeah.
And lots of guys, I'm sure, you know Bruce Springsteen's not going to he's not going to show up at some venue and say, okay, well, let's talk to the sound guy. No. They bring their own sound guy.
It's not going to be the announcer that does the Saints game at the Mercedes.
I saw Frank Zappa in the
that's my shit right there.
in the 80s at LSU, and he had his own PA system. He brought his own PA in a semi truck.
Well, he was also a professional. Perfectionist.
He was a perfectionist, but that's the point. Is that he told the crowd, he goes, see that PA? He goes, that's mine. I own it. It's paid for, and I own it. I have my own sound guy, and he told the crowd all about it. You know, he said,
yeah.
And that's why it sounds so good. You know, because we're in control of the whole thing.
My dad introduced me to Frank Zappa when I was very young. Yellow Snow was the first. Yeah, I mean, I think he was more of a composer than just anything. Like that guy, he would write every piece.
Yeah, he was. He's truly an American composer, unequaled in my opinion.
I would agree with that.
And he covered the gamut. And I mean, he was a quirky kind of a guy, but he changed. I mean, he changed a lot of stuff in music, and he did things his way.
Yeah,
and in spite of the fact that he wasn't getting good reviews and didn't have any hit records, he stuck it out, and he died a millionaire.
Yeah,
because he remained true to his craft.
Yeah, he didn't sell out at all.
No,
he's completely genuine.
Yeah, he was
to a fault, almost.
Well, to a fault, but in the long run,
in the long run, financially more successful.
Here's a great story about him. How far-sighted he was with what he did. So he has a house. He lived in Laurel Canyon in California, and he had a basement underneath his house that he converted into a studio and a vault where he kept all of his tapes of all the things that he recorded. Well, they were just recently, the Family Trust was releasing a new album posthumously. You know, after he died, they were releasing an album of stuff that he'd already recorded. They were remastering it and trying to put in new material that had been left off the album. And you can hear it on Amazon.com. It's the Uncle Meat album, and it's called Meat Light. And it's a re-release of that album. Well, what they found is that the original tapes had deteriorated because everything was recorded on acetate tape. And they had deteriorated, so there were sections of the songs that couldn't mix right because the tapes were defective. You know, the signal would cut out and be distorted and who knows what. Well, the family looked through the vault. He made extra copies and stored them in the vault. So that's how far-sighted he was.
Yeah.
He knew that tape was not going to last, and so he made copies of stuff and stored it in a sealed room. And so the family found the tapes, and they were able to do the whole thing right because he was smart enough to make copies after he was dead.
He's one of the my dad, he had a shirt he gave me. It's at his house right now because I don't want to ruin it. But it's a Frank Zappa t-shirt. It says "Coffee and Pussy." And then he's also, I was like revisiting some stuff, and it's like he's the first guy you hear like sweep picking.
I have that shirt.
Yeah,
I wore it the
awesome
first time that we played at Luna. I had it on underneath my jacket because I bought an original one when he was on tour at his concert. And then
I love that shirt, Steve.
When we played at Luna, I had my coat on, and in the second set, I took my coat off and walked up to the front of the stage, and they had the lights shining on that T-shirt. People went crazy.
You wear that hoodie on stage, huh?
I wear that hoodie on stage.
Yeah, it looks cool. The first time I saw you
that and the big round glasses.
I saw you at Luna on accident, and I was like, "Who is this?" Because I was like, way further in on some dabs than you should be. And I was like, I went with a friend to Luna, and I was like, man, you know that kind of, I don't know if you've ever been this kind of high, but where you're just like, oh, this is irresponsible. I'm a grown man. I've gone too far. I need to sober up. And then y'all started playing, and there was like lasers, and I was like, what is this? And it was real jammy, and it was like kind of like, because Charlie does like those, it's like, not so much like the crazy funk, but he really nails those like, those hook bass lines. That are just like
well, he does, but he's got his own unique style and his own unique tone. That's him, and
it's almost like a punk funk thing.
It is,
yeah.
And it's got the bottom end, but it's got a lot of treble, so you can hear the articulation of what he does.
Especially when he's doing those slides.
And he's a drummer. He plays drums in Holly Rock, so has really good rhythm.
Yeah.
And he's not conventional when what he does bass wise, which sometimes, you know, I'm looking for a conventional bass line, but he doesn't always give it to you. But it still always works. You know,
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Those are the guys
I've learned to appreciate it.
Those are the guys I like. Those bass players that do that. They're kind of like deviate, but they're still keeping the rhythm, and it's working with your drum cadence, and then it gives. Especially if you can create that kind of rhythm where it almost like has its own vibe, and it's not like you said predictable or traditional. When you have vocalists and guitar that can work over the top of that, you get something usually pretty special.
Yeah, and you know what I find is that, and I'm not. This is kind of a generalization, but Charlie's really, really smart. And if you look at, I mean, people that I know that are musicians who are like smarter than most musicians, there are guys that are true geniuses. They're like too smart almost.
Yeah.
Well, their brain's always thinking, because you know music is mathematics, and they're always thinking of new possibilities because their brain is jumping all around.
Never still.
Never still. And so the ones that are really smart and understand what they're doing musically hear things that the rest of us don't hear. They see these openings or these intervals
that could go.
And so they play them. That's kind of like Charlie. It's like he thinks of all these weird shit to play that like fits into the music, and
it's
it's
got
like
those little bass lines, and they'll have like a little run at the end, and they'll go into. I'm like, man, that was cool. And then you're up there, like, is that a keyboard that you have? Or?
Yeah, we have two keyboards, two of these small keyboards that are amazing. They have so much stuff in them.
Oh, these keyboards are getting crazy too.
Yeah, these are amazing.
You have like a little keyboard.
I'm learning
big,
about.
and have like 400 different sounds in it.
Will has a micro Korg, and I have a Novation Mini Nova. They're two different. We got two different ones intentionally, so we would have different sounds.
Yeah.
And you grow into them just like you do anything else, and you experiment and you say, oh, that works with this song. We're gonna do a song tonight that we've never played in public before, or maybe once, but we rehearsed it this past week, and we got a keyboard part to it that we just in practice we were goofing around, and we said, oh, that sounds really good, and that
those are the best moments.
Oh yeah, they are the best moments.
When you accidentally write something better than what you had,
right?
You're like, oh, hey.
Well, like you record a song, and you keep playing it for a year, and at the end of the year, you've completely added. It's the same song, but it's not. It sounds different because you've embellished it, or you've improved it, or you let it grow. You've changed it. Yeah, it evolves into something else.
It becomes the actual song it's supposed to be. That's like people that rush in. Like I know so many bands that have been like together for 6 months, and then they want to go record. I'm like, no, go gig, and write these songs and give it a year or so, maybe a little bit more. Like get you some merch, go put on a show, get like a little something, like make yourself a little noteworthy locally. Then go record, because the song is going to be better in a year. Trust me.
Well, two good examples of that are like the Grateful Dead. I mean, they played these songs for years and years and years, and man, they changed every time they played them. And then Fish, they never played a song the same. They would play the same song, but they would change it completely different. My favorite story is I went to see them in New Orleans, and Trey, the guitar player, was coming in the guitar shop because he was in New Orleans for a while. Really, really nice fellow. But they are always trying to think of new ways to do things, and they're really great musicians. So they played this song. I can't remember which one it was, but They played it all the way to the end, and then they played it completely backwards from the beginning to the end without stopping. When they hit the last note, it started the song over, and they played it backwards. In reverse. They even sang the words backwards.
That's crazy.
That's amazing.
Oh, man. I'm going to get some of that weed they're smoking. Those dudes, all those jam bands, man, those guys have been doing it for a long time. I remember, like we said, when Charlie, Will, and Hunter in here, we talked about jam bands a lot. That is a generalization. It's just like, these are guys that are good at playing music together to the point where they don't have to go off a script. They're just like, we can take this wherever we want.
Right, well...
And we'll find our way back, or we haven't, like that like just
bullet
like
points.
something that lets them know when, all right, this is time to end it.
Well, yeah, and yeah, it is a generalization. The truth is, if you really think about it, jazz is a jam.
Yeah, it's the original
It's like,
jam.
It is. It's like you take the song. I was talking to somebody about this the other night who doesn't know anything about jazz. Is that at the beginning of the song, usually, you have the song starts off and one instrument plays the melody of the song and with the structure that it's written in. And then it's a jam.
Yeah, the rest
From
of it.
after that until you get to the end, when the last person takes their solo, the song's been all over the map.
Up and down.
And they change the chords, they change the bass line, they change everything, and then at the end of the song,
keys that might not
at the end
correlate.
of the song, they tell you the story one more time before they close it. They play the melody again, so you remember. Oh yeah, it was this song.
This is where it came from.
And-
Jazz is crazy though, because they'll do it in some to do it in like 6/8 or 4/4 is one thing. Sometimes you get some real odd
yeah.
timings in jazz, and those guys are just going with it. I'm like, is that what 7? What are we doing here? And it sounds really good, but I'm still trying to figure it out because like my dumb brain can't figure out like how's he just stopping right there and they started over. But they're flowing through this odd timing, like we're talking about like a jam band just playing. And I can't even figure out the odd timing. And that's when you like jazz is one of those things like you get appreciation for it as far as like once you move past whatever genre it was that you wanted to play when you learned. Because I was like a rock and metal guy, not so much anymore. I listen to more like funk and bluegrass and stuff. And once you get your idea of your timings and stuff, and then you get to jazz, you're like, oh, this is a different thing. Like that odd timing improv jazz, you're like, okay, you got to learn.
Yeah,
you
and
gotta
Zappa
find your roots here.
Yeah, Zappa did a lot of that, but you're right. I mean, it takes, and since it's been introduced into some mainstream rock like "Money" by Pink Floyd is in an odd time signature.
Yeah, I love that song.
So it's seven. It's 7 beats.
Yeah, that's so hard. Like I don't know why I find
Is
it.
it 4/3 or is it 5/2 or is it? I can't remember, but it's 7 beats. It's
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7.
Yeah, it's
1.
kinda
And
same
it's-
for me.
Yeah,
I'm
you can't
like-
just fall into it. You got to play
Where's
it.
the 8? Yeah, I can mean like, see for me, I don't know what it is, but 4/4 and 6/8. I guess it's obviously the most common time signatures.
3, 4, 2.
Yeah, but
It's
and
just 6/8,
switching between them and doing like polyrhythms and stuff, I'm fine with. But as soon as it's like 7 or 15 or something, I'm like, nope.
But you know what? All it takes is practice.
Yeah, exactly. I
It's
just have
true.
to- have
All
to
it takes
practice
is practice. If you're a musician, you can learn it.
Well, I'm gonna because now I'm thinking about it as like this is something that I suck at, so it's gonna be fun to get better at it because.
Right.
Was it resistance is growth?
Some people, it's easier for some people than it is others, but if you have the talent and you practice, you can learn how to play just
I'm
about
gonna.
anything.
I'm going to Steve. I've already set my mind to it now. You inspired me to learn odd timings just now.
It's true.
With Pink Floyd. Where we at, Alan? How long can you go? Do you?
As long as you want.
All right, cool. I mean, I know you're playing tonight. I have to go to a wedding, but I plan on being there after that.
Well, we don't start till midnight.
Yeah, you guys are late in that back room. Midnight to 2 a.m.
The last gig we played there, we played at midnight. It was during
420 show?
Chuck Fest or some. It was a festival on the lake. It was out on the lakefront.
Oh yeah, like music. Was it music on the lakefront? I think?
Yeah,
Music on the
music.
lakefront or something like that. It was like a series. It was like it lasted a couple, 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, the name of it's pretty much
And,
exactly what it is.
We played at midnight and the place was filled up. It was great.
Awesome.
People
At the
came out.
amphitheater thing?
Well, the amphitheater was full, but we played at Luna afterwards.
I think that's
at
where when I seen you
midnight.
when I was really I was too stoned. to
And
be
it was
in public.
a great show. The crowd was, thank God bless our fans. We have a lot of really great fans in this area.
That's what. This is a recurring theme on this podcast, but like just the growth of like art culture in Lake Charles over like the last 10 years is getting ridiculous.
That's good.
Yeah, it's because before like you go see like a really good band at Luna that was from out of town or something, and there would be 10 people there. Maybe you had like some hometown heroes that could pack the back room, and then Dave took over Luna, and he really cultivated like that. Like this is the place to go to shows.
He's doing a great job. He's doing a great job.
That's because he's a musician himself.
Well, yeah, that's right.
He understands it.
He has a studio upstairs.
Yeah, he's a very down to earth guy too. He's not like a diva or anything like that. So he understands like what it's like to be on stage and play with a good PA and a good
true.
crowd.
That's absolutely true. I love playing there. That's one of all the places we play, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I've played in the back room there years ago, before Dave had it, and it wasn't not the same.
Yeah, the stage was on the other side.
The stage was on the other side. They had like these.
It was?
Yeah.
Yeah, when it was like
in front of the hallway?
Yeah. Well, no. So the back room, the stage is where all those benches are now. That's where the stage was.
That's what I mean.
And the stages in the front was reversed too, because the bar used to be right in the middle.
And there
like
was pool tables.
Oh.
There's pool tables on this side and darts, and then like a small stage on this side that was kind of in the wall, where they have like their beer stuff now.
Yeah.
And then Dave switched that, put the beer there so we can have more taps. And then he made that front stage, and then he switched the back all around because it used to be an acoustic nightmare back there.
Yeah, he could have a festival in there because he could have like 2 stages with one band playing all the time. Because while the other stage is setting up, that's what we're doing tonight.
I think he did that.
Gravy's
for
playing in the
Fest.
front room, and as soon as they get done, we start.
Yeah, he's really turned that venue.
So we're going to be able to have a full dress rehearsal and have our stuff set up, and Gravy's still playing in the front room. So we got our own place back there.
Nothing to worry about.
That's right. It's great.
Yeah, it's the best version of backlining you can have. Because it's not even really backlining. You're just like, all stuff's up there. We can check it right now because no one can hear us. And as soon as they walk in here, we could just, instead of having to come out and sound check in front of a crowd, you can just walk out and start playing, which is way better. Because people don't have to hear like, and then like snare, snare, snare.
Yeah.
You just immediately start. Backlining's kind of fun though, because you're usually the second or last band, and you're like, cool, we get to go a little longer.
Yeah, well, I like being the last band, but
it's the same thing.
you
with
take
comedy.
what you can get in the show business.
When you do open mics, like you're the last comedian, you're just like, I get to go as long as I want. It's about to get weird.
Yeah.
It's usually when people start going like, all right, we get it.
Yeah, it gets real quiet, and there's just awkward stares, just going, "Can I leave now?"
Yeah, you know whenever it's time to call it quits. Then you're like, all right, guys, that's been my time. Y'all have a good night. No more dick jokes. I'm sorry.
Really?
No, I don't think I tell any dick jokes right now.
Last
Run past them,
Thursday,
Steve.
Good. That's a good thing. You don't need it.
I'm not.
Yeah. Alan's still he's waist deep in those dick jokes.
Yeah. They're easy, man.
That's why you got to stop doing them. Challenge yourself, Alan. Damn it.
Hey, I made a joke
Use more-
about a taco
thank you.
salad
Yeah.
that worked.
He did talk about taco salad. He was very ranty the other night. So,
Well, let me tell you my favorite stories.
hell yeah, let's hear him.
When one day I was at the guitar shop, and this guy comes in, and he's dressed like a I don't know what you'd call it. He's got on green blue jean shorts that are baggies, way down, hung down, come down past his knees. Green blue jean jacket, t-shirt, sunglasses, and the blue jean jacket has a hood on it. And he rode his bicycle up in front of the guitar shop and got off the bike and came in the shop, kept everything on, walked in, and I was like, hello. He nodded his head at me, he walked over, and he picked up a guitar and he started playing everything. So then I'm thinking, well, I need to go over and ask him, if I can help him with anything, just to be polite. So I walk over there, and I'm sitting there talking to him, and he turns his head. It's Bob Dylan.
Incognito.
And I was a big fan. I mean, Bob Dylan. It's Bob Dylan.
Yeah,
That's all you have to say. And I was a fan of his ever since 7th grade, maybe when one of his first records came out, and a friend of mine started playing it for me, and I was hooked from the beginning. And so he's truly, a superstar, and he
still is
very unassuming, but he played the guitar and sang in the store. Well, he was playing the guitar and singing, and my knees started shaking. I was so nervous talking to him.
I imagine
it was just a natural response. I looked over at the guy that was working for me. I said, "It's Bob Dylan." He goes, "I know."
You think
we're freaking out, and it was sort of a very awkward conversation because I couldn't. It was hard for me to retain or any sense of composure with him because I was so nervous. I'm sure he could probably hear it in my voice, and he's probably used to it. But he was really nice, and he stayed for a little while. He gave off the signal that he really didn't want to be talked to or anything about like that. He just wanted to play the guitars and check them out, and that's what he did. And he left. So that's a really great story.
I'm sure his get-up was the reason for his incognito.
Yeah. He didn't want to be noticed.
He's trying to be a ninja, just get
right,
in there
a ninja,
and enjoy it, and then get out. But then I got found out.
Yeah, and then Billy Gibbons came to the store. He was eating at a restaurant in New Orleans, sitting next to a guy, and he goes, "Do you know where there are any good guitar stores?" And this guy was a customer of mine. He said, "Oh, I know a great guitar store. I'll bring you there." So he said, "Okay." So he had his limo parked outside this restaurant, Camellia Grill in New Orleans on Carrollton. They got in the limo. He took him and the guy and his girlfriend, and Billy Gibbons drove over to my guitar shop, and he came in, and the guy introduced me to him. Of course, I'm a big ZZ Top fan.
Yeah,
and really like him a lot. I really like the way he plays guitar and the sounds that he gets, and he and I hit it off really well. We got along really well. He was really great. An interesting thing about him is he's been in the shop a number of times. He always comes in dressed like he does on stage.
I think that's just how he dresses.
Leather usually with this. Now he's got that skull cap thing that he wears.
Real Texas-y.
And sunglasses and motorcycle boots. And at the time, he's gotten a little even cooler in his dress since then. But he played the guitar, walked all around the shop, bought some stuff. Then he couple of things happened that were significant to me as a guitar player, being always, when you're an electric guitar player, and when you're an acoustic guitar player too, you're always on the quest to have the guitar that has the best sound. The tone is what you're looking for. It's Tone Quest. There's even I think there's a website with
Perpetual.
Called Tone, the quest for the tone.
It's perpetual.
And all of us guitar players are talking about it all the time. And when it happens on stage, it's like you're so, oh man. It doesn't always happen, but when it does happen, you know it. So Billy's one of those guys who always gets that tone. I mean, he's made a life out of it. And so I asked him about that. He one day I'm sitting in the guitar shop, telephone rings, and he says, the phone, I said, hello, and he said, hello. I said, who is this? He said, this is Billy Gibbons. I said, hey, Billy, how are you? He goes, fine. I said, what you doing? He goes, I'm in Alaska. I said, what are you doing in Alaska? He goes, I'm on tour. I said, oh, well, that's great. He goes, yeah, I'm sitting in the hotel room, and there's nobody up here to talk to, so I thought I'd call you and talk to you.
That's awesome. That was awesome.
And I said, okay, what would you like to talk about? He goes, I don't care. We can talk about anything you want. I said, well, geez. I said, this is, a moment that you dream of. It's like, well, if you could sit down and talk to John Lennon, what would you ask him, So here's this guy, here's Billy Gibbons asking me, we'll talk, you can ask me, we'll talk about whatever you want to. I said, well, I probably have 150 questions I could ask you about things that I've...
Was he just like, shoot, go ahead?
So, yeah, that's what he said. It was just exactly like that. So I asked him about his guitar tone, and he told me that he had a fan base that were loyal to him, and that they liked the sound of his guitar, and he was keenly aware of that, and that he had this guitar that he played called the Pearly Gates. It's like this real famous 59 Les Paul that he plays, that he played in ZZ Top early on. That my guess, I didn't ask him this question, but I'm assuming that he played it on LaGrange and Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers and all those great songs that they did.
The perfect tone.
The perfect tone. And he said, so I use that same guitar on all my records on at least a few songs so that my fans will identify with the sound. And he goes, I use other guitars too to do different things. But he goes, I always use that guitar because my fans identify with it, and I'm loyal to my fans like they're loyal to me. So it's a really important part of what I do.
Consistent, so they.
Yeah, he says they support me literally. That's what he said, and I'm respectful of them, and want to maintain my relationship with them. And he goes, it's key to the way that the band sounds on the records and in concert. And then the other thing I asked him was, well, I saw you in concert and you had all this big Marshall stack with all this stuff. And I said, these big orange amplifiers. I said, I know that your sound is typically a Marshall sound is what you usually were going through it. And he goes, everything that I have on stage, no matter what it looks like, the insides are fixed up like Marshalls. He goes, I have my amp tech go through them. He goes, he's all about theatrics and about the way things look. So he gets all kinds of cool stuff. But if you listen to his tone, it's very similar or almost the same in every setting because it's signature and it sounds great. Why would you want to change it? So he modifies all of his amps so that they sound like that 50s.
So
that Marshall, that
hot
Marshall
rodded
sound.
to sound like Marshalls.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Which was really cool.
That Texas boogie kind of style of rock that they made. My uncle is huge on it, and I think they're from like Port Arthur. It's not too far from here. So when you start talking about LaGrange, all that it's kind of like a dark bluesy tone.
Yeah.
And
it sings and it's smooth and a lot of sustain. Well, and my other favorite story. Well, there's two other stories, but they're all about. He's like, to me, one of my favorite customers I've ever had. Just because he's in my book, he's as cool as it gets.
So he called you from Alaska.
Called me from Alaska to talk to me,
to
chit chat. Think about that.
He's shooting the shit with you, man. He's
Right.
Like,
so he. I was a Gibson dealer at the time, and I was playing in a blues band, and I love these guitars that are called ES-295s. They're like a big arch top with P90s. They're gold colored, but I didn't want a gold one. I want a blue one. I wanted Gibson to build me in their custom shop a blue ES-295. And so I was a Gibson dealer, and I called them up on the phone, and I said, here's what I want. They said, what do you want? I said, I want a blue 295. They said, we're not building you a blue 295. I said, why not? They said, because they're gold. And I said,
yeah,
no, but I'm a dealer. I'm going to
one.
pay you money to build me one the way I want it.
Yeah.
You guys have done custom colors for people the whole time you've been in business. We're not building you a gold 295. We're building you. A blue one. They're gold, and that's the only way we're going to put out a 295. I said, okay. So I called Billy on my phone. I said, Billy, I have a guitar here that I know you want to buy. It was a 50s Les Paul gold top. I said, I'll give it to you at a really good price if you'll do me one favor. I said, what? And I told him the story. And he goes, I'll call them. I don't know if they'll build it for you. I said, well, order it for you, but have it shipped to me. He said, okay. 30 days later, the guitar was on my doorstep. Blue.
Pulling strings.
The power of Billy.
Exactly. Hey, don't underestimate ZZ Top.
Well,
And
that's
they're-
right.
they're
Well,
brass-
and he's like one of Gibson's. He's they have a couple of models that are named after him.
He's stuck with them for years. He's pretty.
He has the BFG, and then they have the Billy Gibson's '59 Les Paul one reissue, and those are they're all amazing guitars.
Also, that bluesy sound that he brings to it that shows it, like, he showed the versatility of Gibson for, like, rock, but, like, a different genre inside of it.
Right.
And he's loyal to, obviously, fans, guitar shop owners.
Yeah, he's such a
his
cool
guitar
guy.
company. So imagine, he just made that phone call, and they're like, got you. And
Right. No problem, Billy.
he's like, they'll ship it to your house. He's like, well, hold on. This is the address I want you to ship it to.
Right.
And then they're like,
Okay.
that's that guy from New Orleans that called us.
I don't even think they thought about it.
Imagine if they did, they're like, he got us. He got around it. Enjoy your blue guitar.
Yeah.
You earned it.
Yeah. How many crazy people have come in your shop in New Orleans?
Well, let's see.
Or drunk people that try to, like, go in there and play guitars. That happen often?
Not as much as it used to, but yes.
Like,
I mean, I used to be open at Mardi Gras, and one Mardi Gras, a drunk guy came in, and he knocked an entire row of guitars off the wall. He stumbled and fell, and they just went like dominoes. And I said, "That's it. We're closed at Mardi Gras from now on. We're not going to be open during. We close on Friday before Mardi Gras, and we open up on Wednesday."
Yeah,
because
give it a wide berth.
it's just the odds are that, I mean, most everybody who's walking around on the streets is drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't want to take that. You can't, if you're open, you can't tell people they can't come in. I guess you could, but
yeah, you could.
I don't want to go through the hassle of having to have.
Because then you also seem kind of like if you're open and you tell people.
But if you're close to Mardi Gras, everybody goes saying, "I understand." Especially right where my guitar shop has been. It's moved around sort of in a circle, but it's all around where the parades are. So it's a nightmare during
I can imagine.
Mardi Gras.
I've been to two
get there.
as an adult, and I'm good.
It's fun
It's fun, but it's
if you're
like,
partying. And it's fun to watch.
packed. There's so many people. Like if you're not going with the traffic of the crowd, you are not moving.
Right, and you've got to find a spot and get a group of people and cordon off or section off or mark your territory, and you guys stay there for the duration on a day or a night. And then it can be a lot of fun because you're with a group of people you know, and you're sort of sequestered in your own little subculture of what's going on with the parade, and it's a lot of fun. And I did that for years and years and years with a bunch of people that I know, and it was fun. And then finally I said, "Okay, I'm done." Now I usually leave town, or I just hole up in my apartment and play guitar and
That's I would see. When I went, it was one other
hang
person.
out.
It was me and my buddy, and we're just wandering around, and it was not ideal.
Right.
And every single, my favorite thing is those guys outside of strip clubs that try to get you to go inside. Like, your suit doesn't fit. This place looks shady.
Well, I'll tell you a great story about my guitar shop. This is a recent one. You said the crazy people come in the shop. So we were having an Iceman. We were rehearsing my shop. So the Iceman Special was having a rehearsal in the guitar shop. This was 3 or 4 months ago. And so we almost always have a bolt on the front door, but it has glass so you can see in. But we forgot to bolt the door. So we're recording, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this guy, all of a sudden, he's standing in the circle of the band. And he's got a beer in his hand, and "This is fucking great." He goes, "I'm in. What part do I sing?" He was like...
He's just trying to participate?
He decided he was going to join the band.
Oh.
And he said, "I'm in. I'm in the band. I'm in for this. I'm going to do it."
Could he sing?
Well, we didn't give him that much time. Because he was, we didn't know who he was or anything, and so, Charlie's looked at him and said, "I need you to leave right now." The guy goes, "All right." He goes, "No," he goes, "You're not understanding me. You need to go outside right now." And he left, and we bolted the door. But he just came right on in, joined the band.
Charlie seems like a real sweet guy, but he seems like he doesn't take any shit either.
He doesn't.
He's like immediately like...
Well, he's a bartender.
Get out. That'll do it. That'll do it. You're a bartender. You take all kind of shit.
From y'all.
Yeah, you're right. You don't take it from strangers.
You can't afford to. It can destroy your whole night.
Well, also you can get fined. Stuff
you can get fined. People get hurt. People get hurt. That's the worst thing.
The one that always gets me is like people that they have their kid with them that's like 16 or something. They're like, "Oh, she's with me. We'll get her a margarita." I'm like, "No, you won't."
No, you won't.
No. And she's like, "Well, you can
get her
sell
a margarita
to a minor
and you get me fired."
Well, I mean, some states you can do it, but Louisiana, it's also at the discretion of the person serving.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking any risks.
Yeah.
Because if this doesn't pan out right, like, I'm going to get fired, I'm going to get fined.
You get fined, I won't be able to work in another restaurant for like 2 years.
Yeah, I won't have money to pay that fine because I won't have a job.
And you don't know how many drinks her parents have let her have before she came there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, I work at when, oh shit, Alan, you're going to have to bleep that out. It's like a 60-year-old steakhouse. And a lady tried to do it the other day, and I'm like, "Man, this is not the place for that." Like, first of all, we don't have strawberry daiquiris. Like, if she wants like a 20-year-old scotch, I can do that. But I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because this is shady as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, I never want to interact with like a 14-year-old that seems like they have a buzz.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm a 30-year-old man. Like, what? There's no, we have nothing to talk about.
That's right. We can't talk about it. Hey, 19.
No. That's like that kid at CypherCon sitting on the elevator, like, trying to have a conversation with me. I was like, I ate a pot brownie. Like, I can't. You're like 7, dude. We have nothing in common right now. I'm very uncomfortable. Just, please stop being. He's working the elevator. Like, his parents just left him on the elevator. He's pressing the buttons for people. He was on the elevator all day. I was like, dude, you've been here like for 8 hours. Why are you still on this damn elevator? And why are you still trying to talk to me, man? I'm just trying to go downstairs to pee. That's how I felt about that 14-year-old girl trying to get a strawberry daiquiri. It's not happening. No. I imagine that happens a lot in New Orleans, though. Drunk minors.
Well, that's how I got started.
Oh man, New Orleans is.
Yeah, New Orleans is.
New Orleans
There's no other place.
Mess.
It almost feels like going to another country. It's like, except you can use your currency.
Except,
Well, certain
I
parts
moved
of-
away
certain
from
parts
New
of it.
Orleans for a while. And then in the early 80s, I came back to go to the jazz festival and stayed in New Orleans for about 10 days as a visitor.
Uh-huh.
And I had so much fun in New Orleans.
They were like,
Going
I'm
to hear
back.
music, going out to eat, hanging out with people. I thought, man, this is a great place. I mean, you know, I grew up there. I'm from Oakdale, but we lived in New Orleans for most of my childhood and in high school. And it is, if you pay attention, it's a beautiful town. I mean,
yeah,
there's
I
a
had a lot
lot
of
to
fun
do.
there.
There's all kinds of entertainment
It's
going
also one
on.
of the
Like I went to the
oldest cities
symphony on Thursday, and then the week before that I saw Ryan Adams, and then a few days later I saw the reenactment of the Little Feat album at the Sanger Theater with Jamie Johnson and Warren Haynes.
Yeah.
And Don Was and
So
Dave
there's
Malone.
never a lack of things.
There's
like,
never a lack of things to do, and then they have an art museum.
Well,
They
even
have
just
2
walk
big
around.
city parks.
Just walk around.
And
You'll
just walk around, the
you'll see like a
architecture.
street band, architecture, old buildings. Because New Orleans
Art
is like,
galleries.
400 years old.
Yeah,
It's one of the oldest cities in the United States.
One of the oldest. You know,
It's
I think
probably
St.
the oldest
Augustine's the
southern
oldest.
city.
St. Augustine's the oldest in
Okay.
Florida on the
Yeah,
Pacific
because
coast.
they found that and then they come in right here. With,
Yeah. So, but it's a real interesting place, and it's like all big cities, or it's not that big of a city, but like all cities, especially seaport cities, there's lots of drugs and there's lots of alcohol and drinking and illicit activity going on. It's dangerous,
yeah, it's definitely.
and
not
you
the
have to
safest
pay
place.
attention. I've been lucky that I've never had anything bad happen to me there, but I've seen it coming a lot of times, and got in my car or walked the other way,
Yeah.
or just didn't make eye contact, which is
Well, usually my
big
thing
part of
that I
not
do
getting
there,
in trouble.
What I do there now is if I know I'm not going to be like in a very public place and it's not daytime, I'm taking an Uber.
Yeah.
I'm walking from here to Decatur on these dark ass streets.
Yeah, with
At 2
nobody
in the
No,
around.
morning.
you don't. That's it. That's the most.
Those other people,
People get drunk and they get lost.
yeah, they get drunk and they get lost, and they also like
And they disappear.
they kind of let go of that idea. Like this is not suburbia. This isn't like Charles. This is a place that has real dangers, and you need to pay attention. Just because you got drunk doesn't mean you get to go like, oh, I can stumble down whatever alleyway. No, you're gonna get your ass kicked and robbed,
It's true.
and then you're gonna
You
wake
get
up in the
mugged.
hospital. And you're not gonna know why you got there because you weren't paying attention.
If you wake up.
Yes, that's the luckier route for that scenario there.
Yeah.
So that's why, like New Orleans, it's Ubers.
Yeah.
If it's sketchy at all,
Yeah, and they have good Uber there. Really
Yeah.
good Uber.
they'll offer you beers. I was at this bar. My friend, it's on Magazine Street, and my friend Jordan was like, because he used to live there, and he was like, this place has High Life and Jameson for $5. I was like, this is, of course, this is the place that you go to, High Life and Jameson for $5. And I was like, I gotta get a haircut. So I went down to Magazine Street barbershop.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent haircut. As soon as I walk in the door, the guy's like, you want a beer while you wait? I was like, what? Yeah. He's like, Abita Amber? Here you go. Get the haircut, get in the Uber to go back to the bar, and the Uber's like, hey, you want like an Abita Amber or anything while we're riding? I was like, This is the best city in the world. They got some crawtator zaps to go with it too.
Well, yeah, or imagine if the guy would say, and we have a box of chocolates in here, and then we
they go hard
we
for
have
the
some
tips.
fried food, we have some fried oysters if you want fried oysters.
Well, I probably would only accept cooked oysters in an Uber.
Yeah,
I'm not eating half shells in an Uber.
Right.
Definitely those guys work hard for those tips. Like
Yeah,
they have
they do.
like gum, water, beer, and Dominic, this guy that he does Dr. Z. He's DJ. He's did like this big paper on drinking and driving for his degrees going for. And apparently, if you're like in an Uber or taxi, the open container thing doesn't apply. Because they're like your chauffeur or whatever. Chauffeur law.
All right, you can drink in a limo. That's
Yeah,
right.
so like if you're in the backseat of an Uber,
You're in a limo.
yep, you're good. And I was like, this sounds very irresponsible, Tom. And he's like, it's Louisiana.
Yeah.
This is the other than maybe Vegas. As
Well,
far
but I
as
don't think they have
encouraging-
drive-up liquor stores. Like,
piece of tape
I
over
drove to
it.
Oakdale last night, and I went through Ville Platte, and they have a drive-in liquor store right in Ville Platte as you're crossing on the other side on 10 that's been there forever. They set up like a big double wide, or I don't know if it's double wide, but it's a trailer.
Yeah.
But they made the trailer into a liquor store, and you just pull up on the driver's side, and they have a window, and you just order your drink, and you get the drink. Now, when I was in high school in New Orleans, there was a restaurant in Lakeview, right in the center of the city. They had this huge parking lot in the back of the restaurant. And you could park in the parking lot, and they had waitresses that would go out and take your order in the car. So you were in high school, you could go out and order mixed drinks, and they'd bring them to your car, and you could drink in the car in the back of the restaurant
This sounds like
and never even get out of your car.
This is the New Orleans version of Sonic. That's what happens.
There you go. That's
If
great.
you gave the idea
That
of
should be
Sonic
part of
to
your
somebody
comedy
in New Orleans, they're
routine.
like, yeah. Oh, I have an idea. Like, I think New Orleans was a really good idea for a bar, and they made it into a city. Like, this is the port. I have an idea for a bar, guys, and it just kept growing.
Oh, yeah.
This probably my favorite city to go to. I
Well,
try to go 2 or 3 times a year.
Now, yeah, they say it's the second most visited city in the United States besides New York City.
Yeah, I can see
Because
that.
of that, I mean, people come from all over. I mean, that's in the guitar shop. That's where I make the majority of my money is from people that are coming in
Tourism,
from
yeah.
Europe or Japan or South America, or or Canada. The people are coming in the guitar shop every day. Where are you from? Oh, I'm from Switzerland. Where are you from? I'm from Belgium. Where are you from? I'm from Japan. Where are you from? I'm from Australia. Every day.
Well, that's what we were talking about, your guitar having a story. That's a cool way to start your story with that guitar. Is you were in New Orleans, and you went to this boutique antique guitar store. This guy Steve, he's been playing music since the 60s, helped you pick out this telly that you liked. That's a way cooler than going like, oh, I got it on eBay.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's
what
way
they say. It
better.
has a story, and it's from
Exactly.
New Orleans. When they say it has
Exactly,
mojo,
exactly.
it has mojo. It's from
You
New
can smell
Orleans.
the jazz on it. So y'all are playing tonight, correct? So
We're playing tonight. I know this podcast is going to come on after the fact, but still, we're playing at Luna Live tonight.
For 2 hours.
We'll be back here in July in this area. We're playing a festival and a bunch of dates in East Texas, and then we're coming back. I think playing in Lake Charles.
Yeah, I think they said
and-
something like,
and
like a
Lafayette
hill
on-
country tour. Is that what?
Something-
That's what
we did the Hill Country tour already. That's West Texas Hill
Yeah,
Country.
over there by
This is
Hondo
East
and stuff.
Texas. This is like north of Houston, Galveston, and Houston.
They told me you got unlimited PBR at a pizza place, and it wasn't the best idea.
Well,
They said it was a fun idea.
it doesn't matter whether it's unlimited or limited.
See a certain
PBR is
amount
never
What does
a
that
good
mean?
idea.
that means it's a. We all know it's a shit beer. Let's be honest.
Well,
Hey man,
but sometimes you got $2.
times are tough and sobriety ain't always the funnest. So we got a $2 special on PBRs. Y'all probably drink them.
Well, they do. I don't drink, but
Yeah.
I've already had enough liquor in my lifetime to last me.
Got your party in
Last
order.
most people 3 or 4 lifetimes.
I can imagine, like, especially being in New Orleans.
I always say that-
musician, 60s, 70s, 80s. That's
Well,
probably
yeah, I always say that, you know, whenever each person is born, the universe or God says, this is how much you can drink in your lifetime, and you can stretch it out over how much time you want. Well, I drank all of mine by the time I was 29.
So you're going hard in the paint at one point, Steve.
Yeah.
I've seen some. There's people that probably have gotten knocked out their entire allotment in a week.
True.
Ethan.
A lot of them are dead.
My dad's 80 years old. He still drinks 3 beers every day.
Well, yeah.
That's 3 beers every day.
Yeah,
That's
I'm like 3 beers in an hour
Yeah.
or less.
Yeah, those guys that drink too much and they knock it out in a week or a year, that's like a 5th plus a day.
Yeah.
The kind of people that like hide liquor around their house.
Yeah, that's...
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Alcoholics,
a real thing, man.
they call them.
Yeah.
It's so weird too to me that because you can do that and then I can't smoke a joint. That's a weird thing. You can go to like a drugstore and buy enough Jack Daniels to kill you. But like my dad can't smoke a joint because he has arthritis. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. It's all about money and fear.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't want to go down that conversation road. We'll keep going. We'll rabbit hole that motherfucker.
Yeah. I think about time.
We're okay. All
Yeah,
right,
we're
well,
about-
Steve. It's been a pleasure talking to you, man.
Yeah,
Like,
this
we
has been great.
turned into
It went all over the place.
a guitar fan cast.
Yeah.
We started nerding out. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for listening, and thank you guys very much for having me.
Oh, dude, anytime you want to do this, if you're in town, you got the whole crew can come in here, or just you or whoever.
Cool, we will.
Just as long as you just let us know a couple days in advance. Like this is an open door policy. We'll find a way to make time for
Well, we're
it.
going to do that then. What we'll do that in June. We'll
Absolutely.
stop on the way over to Texas.
Yeah, we'll try to get it out
Late June.
as soon as possible, so you can use that for.
Oh, yeah.
All right,
Okay.
Steve, thank you.
Thank you. Nice
Pleasure.
meeting you.
All right, let's stop this.